Councillors, CEO, directors, ladies and gentlemen. This wonderful place we call home has seen a human occupation dating back about 60,000 years. And in our valley, the oldest culture on earth is represented by the Yuwi people. So when we're together as a council and as a community, we honour the traditional custodianship and pay our respects to the Yuwi elders, past, present, and those emerging. So this council meeting is being streamed live, it's being recorded and will be published in accordance with the council's standing orders. So welcome to our online audience today. Welcome also to members of the public here today. Thank you very much for attending. By attending this meeting, we're obliged to tell you that you're consenting to your image and voice, if you should speak, being recorded and published in accordance with the council's standing orders. Also required to tell you that you may be subject to legal action if your actions or comments are deemed inappropriate or unacceptable. So thank you, councillors. I declare the meeting open. In attendance today, we've got everybody here will deal with an excused attendance leave of absence for Councillor Townsend shortly. Councillor Green is joining us on Teams today because of a family medical emergency. To open our meeting today, the Venerable Dr. Rasmi Dunn. Rasmi, thank you very much for coming to Council.
It's my pleasure to be here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for this beautiful region of Mackay, for the city, the villagers, all who dwell here. And we give you thanks for this council, for everyone here who works so hard for the well-being of all. And we pray that today your will be done in this meeting. Loving God, you desire a community where all live in dignity and share the resources you have given us. Inspire all here with your spirit of wisdom. Plant seeds of your vision in hearts and minds, and let the working with one another be done with humour and humility. Help all here present to have the willingness to be open to each other, to respect each other, to listen to each other, to be honest with each other, to be supportive of each other, so that something of your kingdom can be built here. And remind us, loving God, that the true business of this meeting is not simply the accomplishment of tasks and projects, but the building up of true community. May this community be built here first and flow out to the wider community. So bless, dear God, this meeting and all present. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard clearly. And we ask all this in the name and the love and the power of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you very much. No absence on council business. Apologies, a leave of absence for Councillor Townsend. A leave of absence. Councillor Mann moves, second by Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Condolences. Councillor Mann.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The condolences for you and your family for the passing of your father, Douglas George Williamson. So both to yourself and Annette and your family, Lynn and Jeff and their family, we want to pass on our deepest sympathy for your loss. What we do know that Doug was a very family-orientated man who lived the majority of his life in South Mackay, worked in the city centre, and really came through at the service of how devoted he was to his family, enjoyed the family dinners, enjoyed the gathering when the grandchildren would come in and talk with him. And in the later days, just really that connection to family, listening to music was a great passion of his, dancing, all of those sorts of things that we take for granted that Doug was really passionate about and really cared deeply about. So to all of the family members and yourself, on behalf of Mackay Regional Council, I pass on our condolences.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Thank you, Councillor. Further condolences? No further condolences? Anybody have a conflict of interest to declare? No conflicts of interest. Let's move on to the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the last meeting have been circulated. Would you like to move that they be received and adopted? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. If there are any questions, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. business arising out of the minutes in my agenda, so let's move on now to, there's no Merrill minutes, so the consideration of committee reports and recommendations. 10.1, the Audit Committee, the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of October. So the officer's recommendation here is that the Audit Committee be not presented, but should be received. And so it was a fairly straightforward meeting. We met to actually receive the updated, unaudited draft annual financial statements and the additional papers, which we're going to be outlining as an addition in that audited statement, and that the Audit Committee recommended the unaudited draft financial statements for 22-23 be amended to reflect the additional papers and sent to the Mayor and the CEO for signing and then for submission to the Auditor General. Are there any questions? I'd like to move the adoption. Seconded, Councillor May seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Correspondence and Officers' Report, the Office of the Mayor and CEO. So my monthly report has been tabled. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Are there questions around? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. There was, on page 16, there was talks about possible solutions for illegal dumping at the Asia Pacific that you went to. I just wondered if there was anything you could share with us about that.
We're waiting for the report on that to come out. It was a bit like speed dating. Had 15 minutes to actually present. The presenters actually did a very, very good job, and we're waiting for all of their backing details to be loaded on the website. Once it's done, we'll send the link through.
Oh,
it was a very good discussion. It was mainly around illegal dumping in the urban areas, not the illegal dumping that we face. So some of the solutions that they were putting up were cameras on trucks, etc., which we have. But there was a further discussion around, well, what happens in the regions, what happens outside the urban area. We're just waiting for that to come up.
I guess only another comment was that it was great to also see that they'd identified climate change and natural disasters and the cost of living as risks over the next 10 years. And I think they're right on the market for our region anyway, especially. So
yeah, there was a well-attended discussion.
Yeah. Thank you, Rishi.
Further questions? Further questions? I'll move that my report be adopted. Somebody like to second? Councillor Hassan seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. CEO's report.
Thanks, Mayor. Just three important standouts for me in the last month. And the first is just to recognise our waste services area, nominating them the finalist for their work about what goes where education campaign, and just really reiterating Council's broader understanding and strategic approach about making sure we care for the waste of tomorrow today. Nextly was Council's apprentices and trainees intake. We're currently advertising 15 positions. That's subsequently since closed, and we've received tremendous uptake from the community, so that process will commence shortly. And then lastly, in the month of September, a lot of work happening from both our health and safety team and a number of other areas for their involvement in organising the Council's Safety Day, which will occur next month, which will really be a fantastic opportunity for all staff, and councillors are also invited to attend and see more of a proactive understanding of safety and understand some of the things that we can take advantage of and do to make sure that our people that work go home in the same way that they arrived in, which demonstrates our commitment to our staff and beyond. So that's all.
Thank you, CEO. Questions from the CEO? Councillor Bonaventura.
I just wanted to know that it's great to see we've been recognised for our waste initiative in relation to that. It says that it was going to be decided on the 23rd of October. Do we know whether we've won that or anything?
Yeah, just to point out that that's just covering from the September report, so I was going to save the result till the next month, but I'll hand over to the director.
Thank you, through your worship. Actually, sorry, there's a little error there. The actual awards night is tonight. I think there's a conference that started from the 23rd, Councillor, so we'll actually know tonight. So I'm more than happy to send out an email.
I'm sure you will.
Sounds great.
Very good. Further questions? Somebody like to move the report be adopted for the CEO? Councillor England moves. Councillor May seconds. Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. Just to reiterate on the waste services on stuff, I've been able to hand out a couple of these posters to some buildings only as a result of Councillor Hassan's procurement of those. They've been well received, and we got the opportunity to give the Chamber of Commerce a look, and there seemed to be a lot of interest in that as well.
Thanks, councillor England. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No, it's councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Yeah, thank you. I think I should just mention that round one of the community grants was assessed with funding awarded to 22 community groups. Some of the recipients include Mackay Riding for the Disabled with $6,700 odd to upgrade their boundary fences, Mackay and District Hack and Pony Club, just over $24,000 to upgrade their current cross and country course, and Mackay Junior Motocross was awarded $24,000 to help replace their ageing scoring tower. And I've got to say, Councillor Jones and I both saw that scoring tower, and it definitely needs replacement. In total, $192,564 in funding was distributed, and I'd just like to thank Councillors Jones, Seymour and Councillor Townsend for their assessment and discernment of what was a very competitive round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.1.3, the schedule of council meetings for 2024. Of course, this is to confirm changes to our meeting schedule for 2024 in the lead up to the local government elections. Are there any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Hassan? Okay, pretty well straightforward. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. So let's move on to 11.1.4, the adoption of council policies. We've got 5 council policies to consider, 3 for adoption. That's policy 11, subdivision plan approval, policy 121, the social media policy, and policy 37, the audit committee policy. And further to that, we've got 2 for rescission, policy 98, the liability claims against the MRC, and policy 26, the curbside numbering. Are there questions around any of these policies? No questions? Would somebody like to move then that we adopt 11, 121 and 37 and rescind 98 and 26? Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor
I
Jones?
think it's fairly explanatory, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.1.5, contractual arrangements now for exemption. This is for external representatives for the audit committee. Now, this is a good report. The Local Government Act allows us to do this, and what we're seeking to do here is to extend by 2 years the current terms of appointment of the 2 external members we have on our audit committee. So it's to approve the contract amendment for the 2 external members, and to approve that, therefore, Tim Cronin is the chair for a further period of 2 years. To approve or to offer a contract for an extension to Monica McKendry as the Audit Committee external member for another 2 years. This provides very, very good continuance for 2 very good external members of our Audit Committee. So the Act allows us to do it. The agenda item is fairly well self-explanatory. Are there any questions? Councillor May?
Just one question in relation, this is just for this period of time, like when we go out for new audit committee members, the period of their contract will be decided then, or are we suggesting here that this becomes the norm?
Well, you see,
So we're suggesting that the period of audit committee remains consistent with the broader industry, which is that longer period of time, so for all future appointments as well. It just really makes sure we've got the continuation and not sort of starting again sort of post-elections, etc. Gives us adequate time.
And I think that's a guidance, but the council will have to determine at the time the period of election.
Yeah, and it could possibly be at the appointment, whilst that would be a maximum term, an appointment could be 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus whatever it might be, so it's very typical.
Further questions? Somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor May seconds. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. I think it's really been said. I mean, it's a very important decision to make, especially around the fact that we have an election, and consistency is key around this sort of stuff. So, put it forward.
Thank you very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on now to community services. And 11.3.1 is the Mackay Local Disaster Management Plan. So this is presented to Council for endorsement. The 2023 LDMP it's not a big document, it's just a document that's written with the intent to provide a very high-level overview of our local disaster management group and the MRC's responsibilities to prepare, respond and recover for and to prepare, prevent, I don't know how we prevent them, but and to respond and recover for disasters and disaster management in our area. Are there questions? So I'm going to move the adoption. Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor May.
Just very briefly, Your Worship. So yes, look, it's an essential document, I suppose, to set out the framework on which we do respond to disasters. Part of that process is about raising awareness in the community, and you'll see that we're preparing. We've been on the job at doing that over the last couple of weeks with a great initiative with Woolworths and that. So it's about encapsulating all of that so everybody on the local disaster management group knows what we're doing and where we're heading.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to 11.4 now, which is planning, growth and sustainability, and note the inclusion of the new ELT structure name, planning, growth and sustainability. And so 11.4.1 is a facilitating development of the Mackay region policy for the childcare centre in lot 710 at Cutler Drive, Andrew. Director, would you like to walk us through this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application that we've received under the current version of the Facilitating Development Policy for concessions for a childcare centre. This project has substantial benefits for the Mackay region in terms of delivering 100 new childcare places, which is obviously something that we need, and which is why this type of development is targeted by the Facilitating Development Policy. In addition, there's significant benefits to the region in terms of economic contribution. Our own modelling has shown 8.106 million economic impact to the region from this development, and also once operational, 19 direct FTEs, so new jobs, as well as supporting the local construction industry during the development.
Thanks, Director. Questions? Councillor Bonventura has a question.
Sorry, just in relation to the amounts in there, can you explain how we've arrived at a concession of $79,452 when the developer in his request asked for, which correctly calculates at 75% to be $73,693. The figure we're using is almost 81%. Can someone just explain that to me?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm still trying to establish how that figure was arrived at in the report. In any event, it is not relevant to the report. The resolution or the recommendation made to councillors that concessions of 75% apply to the net charge amount, and that will be calculated at the time it's payable. So usually by the time the amount becomes payable, there's indexation and other charges that apply. So the amount will differ from the amount presented in the report, and that is why the recommendation is that 75% be applied at the time the charge is actually payable. And the figures provided in the report are only an estimate.
It's noted as an estimate in the recommendation for approval.
I'm a little bit uneasy with that, but that's an explanation.
If it's locked at 75%, it will come in at whatever 75% of the cost will be. So it can't be anything other than that. If they're estimating that at this stage of 79%, if there are fluctuations, that'll be taken care of by the 75%.
The wording takes 75% takes precedent over the number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the number is in a couple of places of 79,000 is in a couple of places through the report.
But Councillor, in the officer's recommendation, regardless of what the report says, in the officer's recommendation, that recommendation A, a concession of 75% applies to the net charge, and it's estimated at this stage as a dollar figure. Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, on the officer's recommendation there, it's got on C, delayed payment of infrastructure charges, allowing for delay up to 12 months. What guarantee after 12 months are we of getting paid the fees? Because there is that many outstanding now. So is there any like any other way that can be changed? Like we got one coming up today that's 18 years. So
This is allowing them a delay in the payment. You're saying, what if they don't pay?
Yeah.
Director.
Thank you, Worship. How we apply that, and it's something that is actually in practice not often taken up in terms of a concession or a benefit under the policy, but we actually require the developer to enter into an infrastructure agreement.
And the IA should take care of that at the end.
Yeah.
Now, Now, what we've been doing lately is tidying up all of those loose ends for IAs. And so we don't expect that to continue.
Which has been very successful to date. The officers in a number of ones that we've commenced in the last period of time, and we've got a large successful recollection of those outstanding figures due to enforcing that.
Further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to remove? Somebody like to adopt?
I'm happy to move.
And the adoption, Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's a good report, and I just really want to highlight the need, and that's what this facilitating development policy is all about. You talk to any young family, you talk to our own staff, they can't return to work because they can't get childcare services. So this is really important that Council is facilitating these types of development, and with that incentive of a reduction in the infrastructure charges.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Bella speaking against.
To be honest, no one's ever proven to me that reducing infrastructure charges makes or breaks a business coming to town. They come to town on commercial viability, childcare centres especially. The fact that it's going to create more jobs means nothing, because we've already got more jobs than we've got workers. It's going to take workers off other childcare centres and make them more viable. Any dollar, there's only two places council gets revenue, from rates and from charges. And I'm sorry, but any dollar, and if you look through this agenda, over $500,000 in charges that we're not claiming. And that is a fraction of what it costs council. So any dollar we don't take must be recouped from somewhere. I'm afraid it comes from the pockets of our ratepayers, and that will be reflected in any rate rise down the track from here. So I'm sorry, but this is not acceptable to me.
Councillor Bauer speaking for. Councillor Bonaventure speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I will vote for this because it does fit our policy. But again, Councillor Bella is 100% correct. And, you know, like the applicant has advised, even the applicant says, advised that all required urban services are already provided to the site and no external trunk infrastructure and upgrades will be required to the service for the proposed development. That may be correct, but at the end of the day, it does cost us. So I believe this policy needs to be rescinded, as we can no longer continue to use future infrastructure reserves, as it will become a massive liability of this council at some stage. Thank you.
Speaker against? Thank you. Speaker for? Any other speakers? Councillor England speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. Not 100% today, but I'll make reference to the prayer this morning. Primarily, it is the task of this council to build communities, not simply tick off tasks. So this is about building communities. The infrastructure policy was put in place because we are in competition with every other regional centre in Queensland, including attracting builders to the region. It's not our job to say how many jobs there should be or should not be in this region. It's our job to build communities. There is a need for childcare placement in this region. How the jobs, where those people come from is not our business. We're just here to build those communities.
Thank you, Councillor England. Any other speakers? I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Bella against. The motion is carried. Let's move on to 11.4.3, facilitating development. Is this right? 11.2.2. I've skipped over one. Facilitating development in the Mackay Regional Policy exercise now for Xanth Lodge at 62 Smallings Beach Road at Cape Hillsborough. So, Director, is there anything you need to add for this one?
No, just, Your Worship, thank you, Your Worship. We're excited to see some of this tourism development occur. Again, this is something supported by the policy and something we're really trying to target within the region. So it's great to see this coming.
Great. Thanks, Director. Questions? Councillor Bonaventure, question?
Just in relation to section B, where they're going to get the service connection fee reduced. Can I ask what size and type of water main runs along Cape Hillsborough Road? Have we had any issues with the reliability issues with that main line? And do we anticipate a lifespan of that service, similar to what we would get around here of around 80 years in relation to the life of that main.
So,
Yeah, through
you
your
want to have a go at that one?
happy to take that one quickly on notice. From memory, I think it's a poly pipe. Still would have the same residual life. I'd have to check on the size, but it's probably a 63 to 100 mil poly pipe, and that should be sufficient for the development of what is currently being serviced.
Councillor Bonaventura?
Your Worship, as I said, I am concerned about the reliability of the pipe, and as I said last time, they all state that infrastructure is already there, etc., etc. But the more pressure we put on that infrastructure, the sooner we will be faced with a replacement of that infrastructure, and we're not collecting, infrastructure fees to cover.
That's an assumption on your part at the moment.
Absolute assumption, Your Worship. Absolute assumption. Thank you.
Director, is there anything further you want to add?
Thank you, Worship. All I would say is that to get to this point, that development's gone through the standard development application process, and so we assess how it complies against the planning scheme, and part of that is assessing the impact on our infrastructure. So all those impacts and the ability for that development to occur and be supported is already taken into account through that planning assessment.
Thank you. Councillor Balla has a question.
Would someone not have had to already contribute to the placement of that infrastructure through infrastructure charges? Like, it doesn't just come from nowhere. So previous developments would have had to have paid for that to be put in, would it not?
Thank you, Worship. It's difficult to answer that question. I would assume that infrastructure was probably put in prior to the current infrastructure charging framework that we have in Queensland. So it would be something that council would have established at a point in time, and there could have been grant funding from the state available. I'm not sure how that was funded at that point in time. But there is limited development out there now, and I don't know when that was put in, but the current infrastructure planning framework and even the previous headworks charges framework that applied may not have necessarily contributed towards the establishment of that infrastructure.
But it would be correct to say that someone had to pay for it.
Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, it would have been funded in some way.
Okay. Other questions? Somebody like to move the reports of adoption. Councillor Anglin moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Anglin.
Thank you, Worship. The application fits fair and square into the planning scheme. The condition of the infrastructure at this stage should be irrelevant to our decision making. And if other developments in the past have contributed to the installation of the existing infrastructure, we, on purpose, actually ensuring that we have more development to spread the load when it's time for this infrastructure to be replaced, which it will be required to do at some point. So by putting, a worthy development that fits within the planning scheme, in addition to the other ones there, actually is spreading the burden to future ratepayers. But regardless of that, this council's endeavoured to ensure that we have tourism opportunities available to our communities so that we can spread our economy, not just across cattle, cane and coal. And so I'm happy to see another tourism opportunity, mum and dad business, mum and dad developers coming forward, and this I personally believe this would have been a greater burden on that mum and dad developer if there wasn't a facilitating development policy.
Thanks, Councillor Anglin. Speaker against. Councillor Balla speaking against.
Well, I'm trying to take issue with that, in that ultimately, once again, it says it creates jobs, and ultimately those jobs have got to come from somewhere, and we're seeing tourist businesses cutting their hours because they can't get people to work. And I maintain if this business is going to run, let it run on its own merits, rather than us giving someone a leg up at the expense of other tourism businesses. The other thing is spreading the load with regard to increasing services and whatever. Ultimately, once the capacity of any infrastructure, trunk infrastructure, is exceeded, it's got to be paid for. Who's it got to be paid for? Someone up the line in years to come will have to pay full charge because someone's already paid for this. So it's not a matter of just, and is it fair that we rate everyone commensurately, to place further infrastructure in the ground for someone to pay a discount and hasn't paid. One must remember that these infrastructure charges are actually capped at a fraction of the cost to council. It's not full cost recovery. This is a discount on a fraction of what the cost is across the board. So if you go taking it, giving some a benefit, other people pay. Other people at the present time, other people in the past have already paid, and someone down the track. And I'm afraid this policy was a great thing a number of years ago when we were in a situation financially, economically, where we needed activity. At the moment it's cost of living. And I am acutely aware that every dollar that we don't get from charges, we take from rates. And I will repeat myself 4 or 5 times on that one today. Thank you.
Speaker 4, Councillor May speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I think it's really important to remember that when we're looking at these applications, we're assessing them against an already adopted policy of council. So by voting against this, you're actually voting against your own policy. We as a council agreed this was the facilitating development policy. These are the categories that we want to target to build growth, to sustain growth in our area, to encourage tourism to be a product in our area. So I think it's really important that when we put our eye over this, that we look at it through that lens. Council has a policy and we're assessing these applications on that policy. It's got nothing to do with the development application, that's a separate process. It's got nothing to do with the previous infrastructure charges or how that was paid for or whatever. This is the policy, this is the assessment, it ticks the box, we should be supporting it.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you. Agree with Councillor May. We assess it by the policy, and for that reason I will vote for this today. Just in relation to Councillor Bella's points in relation to having employees or finding more employees, I particularly like this development because it is in a rural area where it will draw staff from within the vicinity. They may be retired people, they may be young people, they may be after school. But that is a good thing in that area and I'm quite happy to support it. But again, Councillor May, in relation to what you stated, this policy is in place, but I believe it needs to be rescinded as we can no longer support this type of policy for our future going forward.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor England, you're speaking for.
Right. Mine's a right reply, so Councillor May has an opportunity to speak before I do that.
You've got another minute or so.
Thank you very much. Just in relation to the comments around that this policy is no longer valid, it was reviewed in March this year. So, like council reviews it on an annual basis. If we're not happy with the policy, ask for another review. And I think if you look at the briefings, there's one coming up about a review of the policy. So it's something that we're monitoring consistently.
Thank you. All right, so Councillor Bella, speech.
Yes, it's policy, but as you remember, I voted against this policy for a number of years and I voted for this one simply for the fact that it had some incentive to provide housing. Then we've got a real problem with housing. As yet, I haven't seen us do anything significant with regard to putting roofs over people's heads, and I haven't seen any real change in the housing situation. And to be honest, I'm explaining why I voted for the policy and why I'm voting against the policy.
Well, you can't introduce new.
I'm not introducing new. I'm talking about the policy has been brought forward as a reason that I should vote or people should vote for it. And I am saying there is an element of the policy that is effective but has not worked, or I was going to give it the opportunity. The rest of it, as I said, I voted against it time and again because it is, as I said, taking money out of ratepayers' pockets to advance certain businesses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other speakers? Councillor England, were you speaking?
Yes.
For?
Right reply for, yeah.
Right. You moved this, right, so it's right to reply. Sorry, before you do, are there any other speakers? Right reply.
Well,
Sorry. I'm missing out Councillor Green online. Just give it. Councillor Green, are you speaking for the motion?
Yes, and I'd like to specifically bring discussion back to this report. I am very excited to read this report. As we've discussed, there is absolutely a need for growth, diversity and product in the tourism market, and particularly along the Hibiscus Coast where we don't have a lot of development. I think this builds on the significant investment into infrastructure that the council has recently put into Seaforth, and I think this is an exciting venture for our region. And I would like to think that this policy was one of the reasons that helped this mum and dad business get along the way of seeing this project through to the end.
Thanks, Councillor Green.
Has my support.
Are there any other speakers? Right, a reply, Councillor England.
thank you, Your Worship. The policy is equitable across in the fact that all tourism products have an opportunity to participate in this facilitating development policy. We cannot consider whether the jobs are available or not. That's not our role to play. That's another level of government's issue. The cost of living argument with regards to rentals and other things, I believe we're about to see in the very next agenda item, facilitating development policy, which will directly impact on that. My point being, this facilitating development policy is in place because we are in competition with other regional centres who are out to steal our lunch. We have to compete with those centres. We know we're better than those other regional places as a place to live. Our livability is of high standard. And again, I say we are about building communities, and that's what we need to continue doing. That's why the policy is in place.
Thanks, Councillor England. I'll put that motion in. Those in favour? Any against? I think Councillor, that's just a delay. So Councillor Ballot is registered as against. The motion is carried. Thank you. 11.4.3, facilitating development of the Mackay regional policy, again being exercised this time for Beaconsfield Childcare Centre, 106 and 108. No, is that right? Yes, 106 and 108 Eagle Mount Road. Director, is anything, excuse me, is anything further that you
Thank you, Worship. My comments in relation to this are quite similar to the first report that we considered in this section of the agenda. Another childcare development, 110 new childcare spaces for this one. Again, significant boost to the local economy has been modelled, and a number of new jobs. So again, it's something targeted by the policy and that is supported.
Great, thanks, Director. Questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor England moves, Councillor May seconds. Councillor England.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fits within the planning scheme. There is a desired need within the community, and this tenant, Eden Childcare, has already established a centre in the region, has done well, and is looking to establish more over the next 3 years. I think this is an opportunity to see that the policy is assisting the community in helping us build the parts of the communities we need at the right time.
Thank you. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bonamich, you are speaking for.
Thank you. Again, I will vote for this policy. I will vote for this because it fits the policy, but the policy needs to be rescinded. And as Councillor Englert said, we don't want people out to steal our lunch. But in our report it says, Eden Childcare has already established one centre in the region and is looking to establish more centres over the next 3 years. They are here to stay. I'm sorry, I believe we need to get this policy and rescind it as soon as possible. And I agree, Councillor May, it's coming up. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd just like to add the comments around, like, the question to be asked here, if the policy wasn't in place, would we have people coming and wanting to build childcare centres in Mackay? Because that was the target of the policy. That was the hook that we wanted to use to encourage development to come here. Whether it be childcare, whether it be tourism, they're all outlined in the policy. And I just think that we're looking at this in a negative light rather than a positive light, because one thing we do know, the biggest prohibitive of people returning to work is getting childcare for the children. So it's a no-brainer to me. Everybody should be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking against?
Yeah, speaking against, look, to think that a childcare centre would not come to the region for the sake of $50-something thousand when they're already here, they're already going to talking about opening other centres is, yeah, it stretches belief. And to me, to be honest, as I said, I have never once had it proven to me that it is our incentive that brings, let's be honest, this is pocket change for some of these larger businesses. If you're going to open a business, you don't open it for an extra $50,000 or whatever it is for 1 year. You open it for the forwards of 25 years. If we ran council over, and I tried to speak about different things we did, and the mayor shot me down about the LTFF, but we tried to, which has been proven to be, now we've got a decent one. If we tried to run council on a 1 yearly basis, so we're going to get a bonus here, so we'll do this. What's going to happen down the track? Well, we'd collapse. If it can be proven to me that these incentives either get passed on to the people that use it, or actually are something that gets someone to come here, and it's interesting, we talk about jobs. Oh, we can't talk about jobs, and yet every one of these talks about the jobs we get. So yes, we do. And is it not our job, not just to consider this, but to consider it across the whole community? And the whole community at the moment, the very people that need childcare, need to pay rates. So you've got a big business that we're going to give a concession to and take it out of the pocket of people that need to pay for childcare. The business that I posit would be coming anyway. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Oh, sorry. You were right on reply.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To consider that, to make the statement that that this development is here to stay is an assumption, and assumptions can't be part of our decision-making process. To say that to make thoughts around whether the childcare centre is profitable or not, or whether $50,000 makes a difference, is another assumption and can't be part of the decision-making process. $50,000 is $50,000 when you're deciding whether to build a childcare centre in Mackay or Rockhampton. $50,000 is $50,000. And so I prefer to build it here. The community's been crying out for a number of years that there is a 2 to 3 year wait for childcare in this region. And here we have two before us, and have applied for the policy, which means that they're using the policy as part of their decision making. And I say that's good for this region because we are building communities.
Thanks very much, Councillor Langdon. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? Councillor Bella records it. Against. Right. 11.4.4, facilitating development of Mackay Regional Policy, 3 Wellington Street. Director, is there anything further?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yeah, it is self-explanatory. I'd just like to say that this is probably one of the most significant developments we've seen proposed for the Mackay City Centre in some time. It provides much needed accommodation, and it's a great outcome for the city centre, and it is supported through the policy.
Yeah. Right, questions? Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, just the question I got is, what's the reasoning behind us being a DA approval, like a development application? It's got one for residential and one for essential services.
You mean, what's the reason for 2?
Yeah.
Director?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Within the building, there's the 2 separate uses. So there's the residential component, and then there's also another component of the building to support the assisted accommodation.
Yeah, no, because one's 100%, one's 50%, but also on the 50% one on B is a payment on the officer recommendation on the payment set up the same as the others when they occupy the building on the 12 months.
Question is?
Well, is it the same recommendation?
Oh, is it the same recommendation, Director?
It's not listed.
Sorry, can you? There's 2 different concessions, and that's because of the way the policy is structured. So there's the 2 different types of uses fall under 2 different schedules in the policy that have different concession amounts that apply.
Yeah,
Does that answer the question?
but the repayment setup, is it a 12 months like the others?
They are eligible for the 12-month deferral in payment.
Deferred payment.
Yeah, whether they take that up or not, ultimately.
So, any other questions? Other questions? Would somebody like to move the adoption of this policy? Councillor Englert moves. Councillor May seconds. Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. As the Director just said, a significant development in our region, one within the planning scheme and sorely needed within our communities. 6-storey building containing 16 dwelling units, commercial area on the ground floor, and the commercial area will focus on healthcare activities. It will have specialist disability accommodation and also cater for NDIS supported disabled persons. 16 units potentially may mean that 16 other residents within our community become available for rent, thereby a small lift of burden on those trying to find a rental accommodation in the region. I think this policy, this fits exactly what this policy is trying to achieve in this region by promoting the development of more living spaces and then taking the rental burden by putting more rentals on the market for those who are finding it tough in our community. So I see this as exactly what this policy is designed to do. It's the right policy in the right place at the right time.
Thank you. Speaker against? Or any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship.
I'll get to you, Councillor Green. I can see you.
Your Worship, I do have mixed feelings about this. While I am in full support of SDA being built for the Mackay region, having worked in the sector, I know how important this type of development is needed very much. I guess the concern for me, the whole report talks about NDIS, like I say, full support, but the fact that the material change of use falls under multiple dwellings, I just hope that as a result of the applicant that's going to get these concessions where they talk wholly and solely about SDA and NDIS, that the multiple dwellings, down the track, things don't change and this building just becomes an apartment block for anybody. Because, here we are, the report is saying NDIS and SDA. So this is much needed, as I said, and I just am in full support of that type of development. I just hope that it doesn't end up as multiple dwelling development.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? Councillor Englert, you've got a reply.
Thank you, Worship.
Sorry, Councillor Green. Sorry. I need to be considerate. Councillor Green, sorry, speaking for?
Speaking for, thank you. It's been very difficult to attract multiple dwelling development, especially to activate our city centre and our waterfront precinct. The return on investment for developers is not favourable or has not been favourable. So absolutely, this lever by council to attract this development is working, and whether it is for the specialist disability accommodation that we absolutely know is needed in our region, or if it does become multiple dwelling of any type in the future, to me that does not matter. It means that we're having diversity of stock, we're having additional stock, and we're seeing it in the areas that we want to increase that particular stock. So this is a great win for council. It's a great win for our community, and I'm very excited to see this development come to us today. And I support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Now, there's no other speakers. Councillor Englert, right a reply.
Thank you, Worship. The developer has every right to determine what the development will be at any stage, but won't be entitled to the full facilitating development discounts if too many changes are made. And I personally would be surprised if many changes are made, because this has to be commenced. It has to be operating by the 25th of October 2025.
Correct. Okay, put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Righto, let's move on. 11.4.5 is a request for waiver of infrastructure charges and headworks contributions. And there's a number of recommendations attached to this one, 4 in fact, the officer's recommendations. Director, is there anything else that you need to add on this one?
Thank you, Worship. I think this is fairly self-explanatory. As the CEO mentioned earlier, we're still working through that project of recovering unpaid infrastructure charges. In doing so, we're coming across, certain issues and anomalies, and so that's the purpose is to sort of, I guess, tidy up some of those issues that we're encountering as we work through this.
So there's the waiver requests in 4 specific areas. Are there questions? No questions? Somebody like to move then the adoption of the officer's recommendation? Councillor May moves, Councillor England seconds. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As the Director said, we've been embarking upon this recovery of infrastructure charges for quite some time now. We've had previous reports to the Council waiving infrastructure charges when they've been discovered of certain anomalies have happened, so happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speaker against? Councillor Seymour.
Thank you, Your Worship. See, the council sitting around this table were put here, elected by the people, to support ratepayers in debt collecting and that. Basically, all this is an 18-year-old application here that's gone in, accepted at the time. It may be an inherited debt, but at the time it was accepted by the applicant, and now all of a sudden they don't want to pay their bill debt. To me, there's a lot of these out there, and if we start letting one go through, then you're going to get a lot of people knocking at the door after the same concession, so I can't support it.
Okay. Speaker for? Any other speakers? Councillor England speaking.
For.
For? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, this council has itself inherited and dealt with numerous legacy issues from previous council decision making or inability to understand what's potentially fully going on. There is there's officers have had discussions with all of the affected landowners, and consideration's been given to each of the development approvals. I take on board what Councillor Seymour was saying about if we let one through, but I don't think it's as simple as that. We need to take each case on a case-by-case basis. We can't just broadly go, okay, everyone feels the pain. If in case there's someone out there who doesn't deserve the stick that we might wave over the top of them, and in actual fact it would cost us more to pursue these amounts in court than it would be to waive it.
So it total cost about $54,000. Are there other speakers? You might remember, Council, we've endorsed the collection of a significant amount of charges going back a very long time. To me, if the officers are saying for a total of 4, totaling $54,000, we've exhausted our ability to actually, or there are other reasons as outlined in this report, I think we're going to go with the officers because they've done a sensationally good job in collecting a lot of outstanding infrastructure charges that have been there for years and years. So I think this deserves to be supported. All right, if there's no other speakers, I'll put that motion there. Those in favour? Any against? There's 3. There's 3 against. Councillor Miller, Councillor Bonaventura, Councillor Seymour. Motion's carried. So let's move on. 11.6 in corporate services. Again, a new name, corporate services. Very good. And the budget review at 11.6.1 for September 2023-24. The review director.
Thank you, Worship. So there are 3 key parts to the September budget review, and I just want to take a moment to touch on each of these. So firstly, we have our operational budget, and there are some significant changes in there. Now that we're a few months into the financial year and we're able to have a clearer picture on how cost pressures and other economic impacts will play out for us this year. Like many of our ratepayers, councils also had a valuation change that has impacted us financially. Our assets have increased in value, which means our depreciation expense has also increased as we set aside the right amount of funds to recover our assets into the future. We've also seen an increase in our finance costs as we set aside more funds to support the necessary and environmentally responsible aftercare and rehabilitation works of landfill sites into the future. The second key part of the September budget review is our capital budget. And we are proposing a small increase to the original budget here of just under 400,000 and are otherwise tracking well. The proposed changes reflect changes to estimates, the current construction market and anticipated delivery timing. And the final part of the September budget review presented for you today is a minor amendment to our adopted fees and charges, and this has been done to resolve some small errors that have been identified and to correct some fees that are no longer required. I'm happy to take any questions you wish.
Thank you very much, Director. Councillors, we've had numerous briefings on the situation that's faced us. Are there questions for this budget review? No questions? CEOs, anything you want to add? Okay. Would somebody like to move the adoption of this report? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As the Director said, there's been a lot of work has gone into formulating this budget review. The valuations obviously playing a key part in the adjustments needing to be made there. This particular financial year, and as we know, last financial year, there's enormous pressure on council in managing the budget and managing the accelerated costs of employee expenses, as long with goods and services that we need to procure to be able to deliver our services. So it is a watching brief. This is probably one of a number of budget reviews that will take place in the current financial year. And it's great that the officers are really on top of this and managing it well. So a lot of work gone into that.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.6.2, the Strategic Financial Report for September. Once again, Director.
Thank you, Worship. So the content within the body of the Strategic Financial Report is largely superseded by the September budget review information. So I won't speak to anything in there, but happy to take questions.
Are there any questions? Right. Would somebody like to move the budget review for, the Strategic Financial Report for September be adopted? Councillor May moves, Councillor England seconds. Councillor May.
I don't think we need to speak to it. Thank you.
Okay. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.6.3 is a new lease to the Yui Aboriginal Corporation for the ex-Tourist Information Centre at Nebo Road in West Mackay. This has been a long time coming, and it's, in my view, a great result. It's a good report. Thank you to the Director of Corporate Services. Is there anything further you need to add, Director, on this? Are there questions?
If I could ask the Director, look, I understood that Mackay Tourism had a fair bit of interest in that building. What happened to that, and were discussions held with them in relation to that?
First time I've heard about Mackay Tourism. Director.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. We did initially show members of Mackay Isaac Tourism through the building back in June of this year, as they had expressed an interest. However, there's been no interest expressed since that point in time. Officers have followed up to see if there was any opportunity for them to have further interest in the building, and weren't successful. So that's why it's a really good outcome for us now that Yui Aboriginal Corporation have such a cultural use for it.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Hassett. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're right. There has been a huge amount of conversation behind the scenes, and it has taken a long time to get to this point. But I am pleased to see that this matter has come to fruition, and I'm happy to support the new lease to the Yui Aboriginal Corporation for the next 5 years.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my thoughts around that it's great to see that the Yui Corporation have been able now to secure a lease on this building. I think, for us as a council, having empty buildings is not a good thing. So to have somebody actually occupying this building now and for the use that's outlined in the report, I think it's a great outcome for the Yui Corporation. It's a great outcome for council.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right. 11.6.4, Football Queensland, the additional leased area. And it's the resolution we're seeking is that an exemption applies under the Act for a local government to dispose of the valuable non-current asset other than by tender, and that we approve a new lease, a term of 10 years, Football Queensland, over about 193,000 square metres on lot 7, 1086, known as 10 Hewitt Way, Glenalla. Are there any questions around this? Very well straightforward. Would somebody like to move then the adoption of this report? Councillor Green moves and Councillor Englert seconds. Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. So Football Queensland would like to have a new lease for a 10-year term with the additional 23 odd square metres to the east of 10 Hewitt Way, Glenalla. So to clarify, these are the soccer grounds for the community now. As a regular user of these grounds, I can attest to the inconvenience and the safety issue of the current insufficient car parking. So this is a great result for Football Queensland and for the community in that this additional identified land to the east will be used as car parking in their future plans. And I commend them on the master plan that was added to the report. It's a good plan, and I think it will be a great outcome for the community. So I do support the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Green, speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. There's 12 is the petitions. So we have one petition at 12.1 for an off-leash dog park for the Slade Point area adjacent to the Lynn Street Oval Park. I think that's fairly well straightforward. The recommendation, of course, is that we receive it, refer it to the CEO for a report to be prepared and come back to council, and that the principal petitioner be advised about a termination. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves, second by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Knowing Slade Point like I do, there has been many issues over the years, and so I was asked to present this petition to council, and I do ask that council accept it today, and as you say, that it be referred to the CEO for action. Yeah, thank you, Worship.
Any speakers against? Any other speakers? I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. No tenders to consider today, no notified motions, there's no public participation registered. Late business? Any late business? No late business. Confidential reports, we have 3 to consider. Is there any reason to move into a confidential? Okay, there's no need to move into confidential, so we'll deal with 17.1, the approved sponsorship under the Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for September 2023. Somebody like to move? Councillor May moves, Councillor Englert seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 17.2, the draft minutes of the Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program Advisory Committee on the 3rd of October. Somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. 17.3, approved concessions under the Facilitating Development Mackay Region Policy for September 2023. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, directors. Ladies and gentlemen, declare the meeting closed. Righto.